Looking for the edge? Welcome to Tea Time to Overtime. From the first tee to the final whistle, we're serving up game day insights, expert analysis, and can't-miss betting picks. Whether you're riding the hot hand, chasing the underdog, just here for the love of the game, we've got you covered. Like, subscribe, and let's hit the action. This is Tea Time to Overtime. The game starts now. Okay, everybody, before we get into all of our segments, the NFL, the NHL, and the PGA, I need to give an apology, as this is the 8th episode of Tea Time to Overtime, and there has been quite a large gap between episode 7 and episode 8, so we are going to do a lot better. We are going to dedicate more time to make sure this content is coming out consistently for you guys. We all understand life happens, things catch up with us, and some things, kind of get pushed off to the side, but not anymore. We're going to go head first. We're diving in, putting it all on the line here, and we are going to commit to this podcast. And before we get to the news in all of our segments, my big question and concern is, are we seeing a dangerous new trend in sports betting culture? And unfortunately, the answer is yes, but it's also no. Because we have seen athletes now for a couple years at least. I would even go on to say 3-4 years. I don't think sports betting has been fully legalized for that long, but really honestly, we started seeing this shortly after sports betting became as legal as it is, being able to bet on sports in all 50 states. And honestly, this is probably nothing new to all of our European sports athletes and everything there, but content creators as well are also getting attacked for this, because gambling is a big deal. So there's a lot of podcasts out there like mine. There's a lot of content creators out there like me who are giving advice on sports betting. We're never going to spill our secret sauce, but if you are all brave enough to take our picks, we appreciate it. We hope they're winners. They're winners to our formulas and everything that we have created. But guys, we have to take a hard look at ourselves when it comes to sports betting. And that hard look is, can I afford to lose this money, yes or no? That's the question. If the answer is yes, then by all means, place that bet. If the answer is no, then please do not place that bet. Use that money for what it needs to be, whether or not it's tuition for school, it's rent, it's groceries, whatever it is that it might be. But we have this culture of Venmo requests and death threats tied to bets. People saying, hey, you owe me money because you lost it. And I'm sorry, no, the person who you bet on didn't lose it, you lost it. So there is no reason whatsoever on why this should be happening. It's inexcusable, 100%. Betting is supposed to enhance the experience and not turn toxic. Me, as we're approaching the NFL season, 2 teams I can think of off the top of my head, that honestly, no team I cheer for. Let's take Tennessee Titans and Houston Texans, for example. I don't cheer for anybody. I don't have any friends who have any teams that are within that league. So honestly, when those type of games happen and I'm watching it, I truly just want it to be a great game. I want to have a fun time watching it. But if the Texans are 6.5-point favorites and I decide to put a little money on them, now I'm invested in this game. Now I want to watch this game, and I'm cheering for Houston to win by 7 or more points. I'm like, you know what? Let's blow out the Tennessee Titans. Forget this. Let's make it an easy win. Let's make it an easy pick. But at the end of the day, when the Texans win by just a field goal, I'm not sending their head coach. I'm not sending the players. Somebody who dropped a ball or didn't do an interception when they were supposed to, saying, hey, man, you owe me $5,000 because you lost the game for me. No, I lost it. My formula was incorrect specifically for this game, even though I thought it ended up where I thought it was going to be a good bet, like whatever. Like that's just how it goes. And this behavior is impacting everything from the NFL, the PGA, Live Golf, NBA, MLB, all the way to the Olympics, and even worse, celebrity charity golf events. Now, that to me is probably the craziest thing in the world. You have celebrity events playing with professional athletes that are with actors and actresses and other athletes that are just good at the game that's being played. And you have fans out there going to these games intentionally trying to distract these players so they can win their bet. And when you're at the game, all you can do is distract the other team. They're not really listening to the big up and bluster about hey man, you're the best, hey man, you're the best golfer in the whole entire world, let's keep it up right there. It's just like, oh hey, whatever. But it's easy to scream in somebody's backswing, whether or not it's in golf or baseball, or yelling when somebody's about to make a catch so then they drop it. So again, when you guys are at events, when you have money on the line, respect the game and respect the players, and always do your own research. Again, it's awesome if you guys take my picks and you see it the way that I do, but if it doesn't turn out that way, we're both wrong. We've both lost money. No one deserves that. Oh man, you fucked me up. Yeah, you lost everything. I can't pay my mortgage now. That's not my fault. That is yours. The gambling community is truly an awesome community, and the people that I'm speaking out is a small percentage, but with how many people bet on sports, it is a lot of people. And sadly, those are the ones that are really talked about. And then now for us who either make a living off of it or have fun with it and it's a side gig, it's now we have to take more time out of our day to fight legislation, or people who are saying, athletes and whatnot who are like, what, take sports betting away. I can't stand it, with these death threats. My family's getting these, and all these other things. So let's make it an enjoyable community. Let's make it a point of, if we know somebody like this, we need to sit down and seriously consider and talk them into going to Gambler Anonymous meetings, GA meetings, because truthfully that's my opinion, and that's how I feel for these people who are sending Venmo requests and death threats to these athletes and saying, hey, you owe me this money, you fucked up. They bet more than they were supposed to. They bet money that they couldn't afford to lose. So again, as we wrap up this topic here, the first question you ever need to ask yourself before placing a bet is, can I afford to lose this money? If the answer is yes, you place it. If the answer is no, you do not. Because the one thing we have all learned somewhere along, no matter how smart you are, no matter how perfect your formula is, there is no such thing as a guaranteed bet. You have zero control of the outcome. You cannot do anything except go with your research and say, I'm going to do it. That's why, right before you do it, ask yourself that question. Can you afford to lose this money? Now that we're done with the grim, let's head on over to the NFL, because we only have a few weeks left before the NFL season starts. This podcast is going to hit. It's going to be the start of the NCAA football segment, but I'm not going to focus on that. Too many wild cards for me personally, and my formulas it just don't work with those aspects. And probably the bigger part of this is when I asked some friends of mine who have worked in sports betting and other things, it's like, man, how do you sit here and create a line where the number one ranked team is playing a D2 school, or what we consider like the high school games, the paid games, where we have these lesser colleges coming in playing these slam bams, and they're like, you know what, we sit there and the formula we have to plug in is pretty much, well, how many points is the second and third string going to put up? And when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not that smart. I can't create a formula to do that. I just can't. Again, I'm not that smart. There are probably other people out there, there are a lot of people out there smarter than I am that can create that formula. I just can't. So that's why here we're going to focus on the NFL when it comes to football. Come our PGA segment, we are going to possibly, we are going to start. There's no possibly. We are going to start because people have reached out and are wondering, why are we just focusing on PGA, especially with as much as I kind of talk about live golf and the comparisons and PGA and then that the PGA versus live golf thing that they're going through, and I'm like, you know what, you're right. So we're going to start talking about live golf. We're going to start that next year or next season because live golf, just like the PGA, it's wrapping up, it's coming to an end. So we'll track some things. We'll see if we got some caddy switch, some equipment switches. We'll see what we got. But the odds are the odds as the tournaments pop up and go. So after this week, honestly, I don't know what I'm going to be talking about in the golf segment here. But anyways, back to the NFL. Enough with this ranting and raving. So as we are been collecting a few, reading these articles and putting them down for topics, for the past few weeks. Some of these might be old, some of these might be old news, but here we are with two huge players and question marks next to them. It's, what was that update with James Cook? We all know he was looking for that extension on his contract. He was looking for a new one, and he got it. His new deal is 4 years, $48 million with $30 million guaranteed. He is coming off of his one of his best seasons in his career. He had over 1,000 yards rushing, tied the league with 16 TDs, and he had 258 yards through the air with 2 TDs, and the Bills are locking him in long time. This is a huge weight off of the shoulders of Josh Allen. I truly believe that. Even though there is no double-headed, or running back by committee, Josh Allen is very dangerous on his feet, and you have James Cook in there. So now not only are we focusing on Josh Allen, but with his running, but we're also have to worry about James Cook getting the ball. So now we're technically playing two runners who are possibly on the field. If both of them go opposite ways, that defense is going to get frozen for a short time, and unless you can make that one-on-one tackle, there's definitely some yards to be gained. Not only that, but we talked about Cook getting the ball through the air. He only had 258 yards and 2 TDs in the games that he played last season, but he is a threat when it comes to open space. So on screen passes, on little bootleg wheel routes, it opens up a whole new playbook, and it helps the receivers for the Bills. It just locks them in, and again, this was part of the reason, thinking and predicting that this deal was going to get done, was why I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they're finally going to break through. Whether they meet the Chiefs in the playoffs or not, that's a whole different that's a whole different story and a whole different prediction. But with Cook locked in, the Bills at the top, just like they were when we started this venture a couple months ago. But the bigger question mark that we have is, as we jump to the NFC, is what's going on with Micah Parsons and the Cowboys. Now, this has been a fascinating storyline to watch. As we, if you've been watching this storyline, you know that Parsons, said he's up to get traded. He says he loves the Cowboys. He says he wants to play there, but he's up for a trade because the contract extension hasn't shown up. And I learned a new terminology this season. Apparently, there's something called a hold-in, opposite of a hold-out, where you're just not doing anything, you're not showing up to the facility or anything like that. But Parsons is doing a hold-in, where he's showing up for walkthroughs, he's showing up for meetings, he's not practicing, he's not playing in the preseason games, even though, I'm sure even if he was playing in the preseason games, his snaps would have been limited. But, he's doing these to say, hey, I want this new contract, I want this extension. And my issue with this is that the Cowboys picked up his 5th-year option. He's due to get paid $21.3 million. He only had 12 sacks and 2 forced fumbles in 13 games that he played in last year. So I understand he takes somebody else away. He gets that double team. He's a high caliber player, and Jerry Jones has said he won't trade him, and I'm pretty sure he's going to stick to the guns there. But opening night against the Eagles, again, it's 2 weeks away. This is Cowboys Eagles. This is the kickoff game. This is a game that right now, as the storyline has progressed through the weeks, the head coach says he's going to start. They're going to reach this deal, and I'm going to be very curious if they don't reach this deal. Are we going to go from a Micah Parsons hold in to an actual holdout where he's going to refuse to play games, or is he going to say, you know what, I'm getting paid, I've got $21 million on the line, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do what I do best, and that's be one of the best players on the field during defense. And then come time, get that extension, get that new contract, or you hit free agency. I mean, Micah Parsons hitting free agency after having a great season in 2025 and 2026, like, he will get paid. He's already on track to being one of the largest paid players who are not quarterbacks in the league. So I can guarantee, great year this year, you go out in that market, brother, you're going to get paid. So I hope he shows up. I always want to see the best, from all these teams. And on top of that, Micah Parsons doesn't play. Man, that my formula is going to get wrecked. So it'll be fun for me to explore that if that honestly really doesn't happen. But our NFL futures that we have, they have changed significantly since the offseason first started. We now have the Ravens and the Bills as the favorites to win the Super Bowl at plus 650 apiece. The Eagles have dropped down to third best at plus 700, Chiefs plus 800, and the Lions at plus 1100. Still same top 5 teams that were favored to win the Super Bowl in the beginning, but those odds have changed significantly. So as I said, my pick to win the Super Bowl is the Bills, and my guys aren't even on the top 5 anymore for the NFC, which I actually have the Rams to win the NFC Championship at plus 1,000. But your top 5: Eagles plus 325, Lions 475, 49ers plus 800, Commanders plus 900, and the Packers have now squeezed into the top 5 at plus 900. AFC, not much has changed there besides the odds. The Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs are now favorites to win it at plus 350, and then everybody after that is just getting ridiculously disrespected because the Bengals come in as 4th best favorite at plus 1,000, Chargers plus 12,000. So those 3 teams pretty much have the locks on there. I did take the Bills. I believe they were plus 400. I don't have those in my notes right here, but I think they were plus 400 when I took them to win the AFC East, or the AFC Conference. And then, like I said, plus 700 when they took the Super Bowl. And my strategy to you all, and again, this has kind of woken up, talking about gambling banks, as we talked about in the very beginning of this podcast. But when it comes to betting on the futures, don't break the bank. Sprinkle, don't drown. And what I mean by sprinkle is I think the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl right now at plus 700. And my rule of thumb, personally, for the futures is 3 to 5% max of your bank is what you need to put on a future, no more. Obviously, it can be a lot less than that 3%, but my rule of thumb for also just per game is no more than 10% of your total bank as well. So, sprinkling, I have the Bills picked to win the Super Bowl right now. As the season goes on, I might be looking at another team to win the Super Bowl. And I could possibly have 5 bets on different teams to win the Super Bowl before we even reach the playoffs. But because I bet those low amounts and hitting those odds in the right spot, I'm going to break even at worst if one of those teams wins the Super Bowl. And in all honesty, most of the time when you do this strategy with futures, you're actually going to win. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're sprinkling them through. And again, small bet, small bet, small bet, small bet to win a good chunk of money, especially if you're able to be there for the odds. Everybody could be putting money on the Ravens at plus 350, and then all of a sudden they start out 0-5. They're going to tank it. Bengals are all of a sudden going to jump way up in there at plus, let's say, Bills and the Chiefs stay at plus 350. Bengals will jump up probably to plus 500. So you put a small bet on that, and again, we keep going. We keep taking these back and forth because of the odds. So again, sprinkle, don't drown, 3 to 5% max bets on all futures. That being said, we got some futures to talk about as we head into the NHL segment. Some of you may have heard about Matthew Tkachuk and his injuries. The big question is, how serious are those injuries? Very serious. He tore an abductor and suffered a sports hernia during the Four Nations face-off in February. Please don't ask me where any of these injuries are. I honestly don't know. I just know that this surgery could get him to miss 2 to 3 months of the season. And in hockey, missing especially the first 2 to 3 months, that's never a horrible thing. That's only roughly half the season. And the Panthers, we have to remember, had a big offseason, signing Sam Bennett, Aaron Ekblad, and Brad Marchand. So they have the firepower to continue being one of the best teams in the NHL, even without Matthew Tkachuk. He'll be missed 100% on the ice, and he will supply so much more firepower. But the Panthers have built themselves this offseason with these huge offensive signings to make sure that they don't lose it. And Tkachuk's injury probably factored into a lot of these signings because the coaches were very surprised that he made it all the way through the playoffs. They were only expecting him, they were honestly expecting him to get injured during the first round playing the Lightning. But here we are. He's on the cover of the NHL 26 and moving forward. We're going to jump into an Olympic topic, but that 2 to 3 month surgery for his injuries could also affect his spot on the roster for the men's Olympic team for USA. In June, he was one of the 6 players announced who already made the team. But if this surgery is any longer than these 2 to 3 months, he's going to have to make a decision. Do I go to the Olympics, fresh off of rehab and everything else, possibly risk another injury, or do I sit out during that Olympic break and then join my team and make that deep run back into the playoffs like they will. So it'll be this. So this is going to be very interesting to track. It's also going to be something to track within the futures for the Olympics, as Canada is the current favorite at plus 150. USA plus 200, Sweden plus 500, Finland plus 750, and then Czechia and Switzerland at plus 1400. Absolutely no surprise, because the NHL is back in this, that the top 4 teams, odd-wise, to win the Olympics are the same 4 teams that played in the Four Nations face-off. So absolutely no surprise there. But the final rosters will be picked come January. So, again, all these odds are going to change. It's going to be very fun to watch. But right now, is Patrick Kane eyeing one more run with the U.S. team? Abso-freaking-lutely he is. I mean, you want to... Hockey is such ingrained as a national sport that you want to represent them. Which is why I think Tkachuk, given the chance, he's going to play in the Olympics no matter what, just like within the Four Nations face-off. He played injured. He came back. He missed the rest of the season, came back in the playoffs, and Panthers won back-to-back Stanley Cups. So Kane will attend the U.S. Men's Olympic Orientation Camp this month, along with 44 other players. Like I said, Matthew Tkachuk has already been named with his brother Brady, Austin Matthews, Jake Eckel, Quinn Hughes, and Charlie McAvoy. Those were your original 6 that were announced in June, and we'll see who makes it throughout the rest of the year. Like I said, we got about 45 guys trying out for this team. 25 of them make it. It's going to be fun. The Olympics, with the NHL getting back involved with them, is going to be absolutely fantastic. The futures within the Stanley Cup haven't really changed. Panthers plus 600, Hurricanes plus 800, Oilers plus 850, Avalanche plus 900, Knights plus 900 as there. The preseason schedule is out. We are just a couple months away, actually probably more, closer to a month and a half away of the start of the NHL season. So strategy tips, very much the same as the NFL futures. Again, let's focus on that 3 to 5% max bet. But everybody take a big breath. Take a deep breath. It's only mid-off season, guys. Futures are fun, but let's be patient. Let's see what else we got going on. All the big signings are probably over, but let's see what happens. NHL, 84 games now? I think, 84 games now. And it's a lot longer season than what the NFL is. So, NFL, where it's hot, it hits hot and heavy. We're ready to go. But let's chill out. Let's cool it on the ice. Let's watch some great hockey and see how these odds adjust and go. Now, as we go from the ice, we're heading back to the grass. We're heading to the greens because we're in the last week of the PGA playoffs. So what has happened? Here's the update. Back-to-back thrillers. We had Justin Rose, who won the St. Jude Championship over J.J. Spaun after 3 playoff holes. And then Scottie Scheffler storms back to win the BMW Championship without his original caddy. And the BMW Championship set the stage for the top 30, where everybody's having fun in Eastlake right now for the FedEx Cup final. Now, the interesting story here is the PGA playoffs, St. Jude, round 1 playoff holes. They played 18 3 times. 3 times. Normally, when a golf playoff goes to, tie on 18, they're going to go to then 17, 18. And then if there's still a playoff after that, then they're going to play 16 and then 17 and then 18. Or the courses have designated holes that they're going to pick. And those holes are picked either because of strategy or also to layout of the course. As somebody who can respect this, that has worked in the golf industry, that is a lot of wear and tear, having all, tens of to hundreds of thousands of people standing on the grass and trekking in and out. So that's a lot of stress on the golf course there. So That was the interesting part that I found here. And then, because these guys are good, we don't want to make it a driving range type of thing. After the first two after the first two attempts on 18 in the playoff tied, the groundskeeper actually came out and swapped the pin placement. And then Justin Rose ended up winning after that. So very interesting. Kind of want to know your guys' thoughts, all my golfers, down in the comments. Let me hear yours. Do you like that? Do you think that should be the precedent of every tournament moving forward, that 18 is just replayed, the pin is moved every 2 holes? Or do you think that the golf course is the one that should be setting the precedent and they get to choose how the playoff wants to be? So let me know, let me hear that down in the comments. Very curious to hear your all's comments. So we are heading into the Tour Championship. We have a different format this year, and we need to hear how it works, right? How's Atlanta going to work? How's East Lake going to work? Well, this year, everyone's starting at even par. No staggered strokes like last year, where whoever was number one in the FedEx Cup standings, he started out at 10 under, and then everybody down was staggered to that. So, second place started out as -8, then -6, et cetera, until, you had the, at the bottom, so number 30 was even par going into the tournament. So now it's a clean slate for the top 30. East Lake will crown the true FedEx champion. But questions for me arise as we go into the 20th year of the FedEx Cup. I'm not that young. I've been around from the beginning, since the FedEx Cup. Old enough to know and understand the politics and, and the strategy behind it. But, it started out as the points and just saying, okay, at the end of the season, yes, we're going to have our playoffs. Or, at the time it was 4 playoff rounds. But whoever had the most points at the end was there. I believe one of the final years where they did this, Tiger had such a phenomenal year over everybody else. When didn't he? But this one specifically, I think he skipped the first 2 playoff rounds and still won by a landslide. I mean, something stupid like that to win it. So then they went into this kind of, staggered stroke thing. And again, the question now arises, like, why should I play in the first 2 playoffs? I mean, I'm there. I know I'm going to get in. Like Scottie Scheffler, he didn't have to play the first 2. He was probably still would have been in first place for the FedEx Cup going into this week. Even if he didn't play, if not, it was top 5 easy. And when it comes to the playoffs, we want to see the best of the best play. So I'm really hoping it doesn't affect it. I know Rory McIlroy skipped the first one because he wasn't feeling well. Sepp Straka had some family matters that he had to take care of in the BMW. But again, both of them, took those times knowing that the placement going into the top 30, it really didn't matter for them. And they all have that equal chance of winning the FedEx Cup. So interested to kind of see how that's going to work out long term. But everybody needs to watch out for Scottie Scheffler this week. And that's because Ted Scott's back on the bag. Scottie Scheffler has used fill-ins since round 3 of the St. Jude. He used one of his good friends for the final round at St. Jude, where he finished tied for 3rd. And then he borrowed Kirk's caddy and came from behind and won the BMW. So with Ted back, his comfort level is only going to rise. And, need to give everybody full perspective on what a caddy does for especially a PGA professional. They're not there just to give them the yardage, read the greens, which I feel like very few caddies do nowadays, and hand them clubs, and they are literally there supporting them. They are the biggest cheerleader. They are the punching bag when something goes wrong, and they are there to keep the golfer even keel. They want to say, this is the mental space that he's supposed to be at. That's where he needs to stay. That's what he needs to do. Hey, Scotty, you're walking too fast. Hey, slow up a little bit. Let's not, burn all that energy. Scotty, man, you just janked a 75-foot putt on that last hole for par. Brother, you're going knock it to 2 inches on this one. You know, whatever those conversations are for that hype, for that get your head out of your ass, for the it's not that bad, you're still here, whatever those conversations are, that's what a caddy does. And great caddies, it's not a coincidence that they are with great players. Great caddies can make players great. Simple as that. I can't imagine what, you know, as we saw at the end of Tiger's career, you know, Stevie gets taken off the bag and, you know, Tiger starts really going up and down. Granted, he was going through some things personally and all this other stuff, blah, 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 but it raises the question, if Stevie was still there, would Tiger have been able to continue to make his reign on the course? Something we'll never know. As we close out the 2025 season for the PGA, what should we know about the 2026 PGA schedule? As I mentioned earlier, it's the 20th year for the FedEx Cup, and the season's going to kick off in Maui on January 5th. That is going to be the first of the 35 official events for FedEx Cup points, and there will be 9 signature events. One of those events is heading back to the Blue Monster at Trump National in Doral. It hasn't been played there in a very long time. Live Golf was actually, I told you we were going to start bringing Live into this podcast. But Live Golf, you know, took advantage of that. That was one of the premier courses. You know, I know they get great turnout on a majority of their courses that they go to. But that one was, you know, was extra special. It was in a huge golf mecca of Florida. It was a PGA renowned type course. And, you know, great, always fun, always great. So interested to see, since the Live schedule hasn't fully come out yet, is Trump National Doral going to host, specifically the Blue Monster, 2 professional leagues this year. So be very interested to see that. Seeing the schedule and kind of comparing it. If Live goes to Doral in their normal time, there's roughly 3 weeks to a month. So not exactly sure if the PGA kind of, you know, they tighten it up, man. They make sure no one's playing that course, and that course is in pristine condition. So we'll see what happens there. The Genesis Invitation will be back at Riviera. The reason it wasn't there this year was because of the wildfires that were happening in California at the time, and the Truist Championship will return to Quail Hollow as they played host to the PGA Championship this year. So a lot of, you know, things are getting back to more normal, give or take, you know, some other things. As we have the Ryder Cup going into this year, next year, the President's Cup will be played at Medinah in September. It'll be its 16th President's Cup, and we will have Captain Snedeker versus Captain Ogilvy for the International. So always fun, you know, when we get the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup around. So we'll, you know, again, we'll be talking about the Ryder Cup. That's all we'll be talking about here, and you know, after this week. So same thing. It's, you know, always great to have something to talk about after the playoffs and the season is over, especially something that these players hold near and dear to the heart. You know, talked about how passionate the NHL is about representing their nation. Golf is right up there with them. If not tied, definitely a very close second. So heading into the Tour Championship, our odds going into round 1, Scottie Scheffler, you know, no doubt that he was going to be the favorite, but he was favored at plus 165. McIlroy plus 800. Tommy Fleetwood plus 1200. Ludwig Oberg plus 1600. Russell Henry plus 1600. And then going into round 2, Scottie Scheffler plus 110. Russell Henry, the leader, plus 350. Tommy Fleetwood plus 900. Rory McIlroy plus 1200. And Justin Thomas plus 1600. Always the strategies. Look at the day-to-day matchups. Find the one that you like. Take it. Enjoy it. And going into this, man, stick to your 3 players. Stick to those core players that you believe in. You know, look at the top 10s. look at everybody going into this. Everyone's going to be giving it all this week, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But on that note, how fun would it be if Tommy Fleetwood finally pulls off his first PGA Tour win to take home the FedEx Cup? That would be awesome. But hey guys, that's a wrap on this round of Tea Time to Overtime. From the greens to the ice and every yard in between, we've covered the plays and the odds. Think you've spotted the next big upset or locked in a winning parlay? Let us know. Subscribe, rate, and follow for your weekly dose of insights, predictions, and betting tips. And remember, play smart, bet responsibly, and enjoy the game. This is Tea Time to Overtime. We'll see you next time.